Hello, welcome to the Cold Hard Facts on Sex Habits. I'm Jenny Kay. And ladies, I want to ask you a question. If you could give yourself 90 to 110 orgasms a minute with an electric vibrator, would you be interested? Well, it would be heaven, but let me tell you something. If you gave yourself 90 to 110 orgasms a minute, you would be destroying any chances of having pleasure from a man orally after desensitizing your clitoris. You would not only destroy any pleasure that you may receive down the road from a man giving you oral pleasure, but eventually you would be in a situation where you had no desire for intercourse with a man. And all you would think about would be the pleasure that you derived from the vibrator, knowing that you could get that full satisfaction. And what happens is, when you give yourself that intense pleasure, the brain will remember and your body will secrete dopamine. And then when your body wants pleasure again, the brain will always go back to what it remembered as being the most intense and satisfying pleasure, and it's going to remember it as being that plug-in vibrator. So even if you want to have pleasure with a man, if you've trained your body over time to only get its true satisfaction with the vibrator by using it once a day or sometimes twice a day, when you do get with a man, it's not going to be as exciting. You're going to have desensitized your body, and it's just not going to be the same. For over 35 years, I've been studying and researching men and women of all ages on their habits using a vibrator on their genitals. And I have come to an interesting discovery. I have discovered over time you can train your body that the only stimulation that your body wants and the only thing it's going to respond to is that electric vibrator plugged into the wall to give you that ultimate pleasure. And for men, they do the same. They just take the electric vibrator and they can use it on different parts of their body. They could use it on the testicles, or they could use it at the base of the penis, or they could use it on the head. But over time, if a man uses it on a regular basis, he's going to train his body that that's how it wants to have its satisfaction. And what's interesting is that, yes, a woman can have 90 to 110 orgasms a minute with an electric vibrator, but if she continues to do that over and over and over, she will train her body to desensitize, and it will take longer for her to get that same pleasure with the vibrator the more she does it. And then all thoughts of satisfaction with a man dissipate. Then it becomes the lady and her vibrator. Or with a man, it becomes him with his vibrator. If he finds he can plug the vibrator in and get his satisfaction quick, easy, no questions asked, that's what he's going to do. I've not only been doing the research for over 35 years, but hey, I can tell you, I've experienced it. I remember being 23 years old, and for Christmas, all of us sat into a circle and we were exchanging gifts, and I opened up my gift and it was one of these wonderful vibrators, and it had a picture of a lady using it on her neck and shoulders, and I thought, gee, that looks interesting. So I took it out and I plugged it into the wall and I started using it on my shoulders, and my sister ran over and said, no, that's not what you do with that vibrator. I said, what do you do with the vibrator? She took me in the other room. And she said, no, that is just for your private parts. I had no clue. Well, I put it away. I didn't think about it because that seemed kind of strange to me. I didn't think about it, and a couple weeks later, it was a cold, rainy night, and I thought, I'm going to try that. Oh my goodness. I took that vibrator out, and I went nuts. Totally nuts. So nuts that I couldn't believe I was having so many orgasms. And understanding that an orgasm is that contraction and release, I mean, it was just continual over and over and over. And I was having series of 5 and 7 orgasms. And then I would just move the vibrator a 1/16 of an inch, and I would have more, 7, 10 orgasms. And I was shocked. I went and got my egg timer from the kitchen, and I started timing it. And I learned that I could have 90 to 110 orgasms just in a minute with the plug-in vibrator. I was hooked. The fire department could have been at my door. The police could have been banging on the door. I was up in my bedroom, lying there in soaked sheets, just enjoying my vibrator and not caring about anything else in the world. That was difficult. The reason it was difficult was because I was learning that I was being controlled by the vibrator. I would come home, and in the morning I would use it, in the evening I would use it, and I found myself thinking about it more and more and more. And I really didn't understand a lot about it. I just knew that it felt good. I was young, I was 23, it felt good, and I was just not thinking about down the road of having a relationship. And then one day I decided, I'm probably doing this a little too much, because I noticed that the sensitivity I had in the very beginning started to wane. I noticed that I had to give a little more pressure on the vibrator. Or give a little more pressure to myself from the vibrator. I noticed I had to move around a little bit more. I noticed I had to be a little more creative. And then the thoughts in my head that I really didn't need to think about anything, and I would have great orgasmic activity, I realized the thoughts in my head had to be stimulated a little bit more because my body was getting real used to it. And then I decided, that's probably not in my best interest. So I put it down. But I was hooked on it for 6 solid months. After I put it down, it took 9 months to get my sensitivity back. Yes, 9 full months to get my sensitivity back in the clitoris. The first month of that 9-month period, I thought I was going to start cold turkey, just give it up. But then it had been an addiction. I went ahead, and after about the first 4 days, I went back to it. One time, I thought, oh no, once isn't going to hurt. And then a couple more days went by, and I was giving myself credit for not going to it because the memories were fabulous and my brain was wanting it. I ended up using it again. And then maybe I went a week without it, and then I used it again. And I started to realize that the only way that I could give it up was cold turkey. I was going to have to make a choice. Am I going to continue with the vibrator and give myself this fabulous pleasure and truly be selfish? Because down the road, being in a situation where you've desensitized your clitoris, and then when you do get into a relationship, you really still crave the vibrator, and you really still crave that feeling that you had when you were by yourself. It's kind of a selfish thing. It's very selfish to be just taking your own pleasure. And I didn't want to do that. When I was in a relationship, I wanted to be 100%. I didn't want to be sneaking behind someone's back and using the vibrator. Or I know of women have told me that they get up in the morning and they get the kids off to school and their husband's off to work, and they quick hurry up, lock the doors, turn the phone off, and grab the vibrator and that they have hidden away, and then jump into bed and give themselves pleasure. And I didn't want to be like that. I didn't want to be hooked on a vibrator. I didn't want to be selfish. And I certainly didn't want to desensitize my body. But the only way I could give it up was cold turkey. And through the research and through the studies, I have found that what I call it is Golden Vibrator Syndrome, because Golden Vibrator Syndrome is truly the inability to gain pleasure with anything other than the vibrator. Because after you use the vibrator over time, then you're not going to be interested in having intercourse with a man or oral pleasure from a man. And it really makes a huge difference in your relationships. Now, there are some relationships where men and women are, they're okay with, him going into the office room in the house and doing his porn, and her taking care of her vibrator, or taking care of herself with her vibrator. There are situations where couples do that. But in a healthy relationship, two people are together, wanting to be with each other, pleasing each other, and not needing to have other things to give themselves the pleasure. Some people like to play with toys, and we'll talk about that in another video. And I don't think there's anything wrong with toys, but when you get hooked on the pleasure of a vibrator, and the only thing that can give you that true pleasure is a vibrator, then it really, it just ruins any chance of you being in a relationship with someone and truly allowing yourself to be pleased by that other person, which gives the other person so much pleasure, you as well. But people in relationships enjoy pleasing each other. But if your husband comes home and you've already zapped yourself off with a vibrator 2 or 3 times during the day, your desire to please him and his desire to please you is totally gone. You could just grab your vibrator, he could just go take care of himself, and then you're living separate lives under one roof. And I don't think that's what you want either. It's real easy to get in a habit of a vibrator, and it's real easy to get into a habit of taking care of yourself, but is that what you really want? I don't think so. Nowadays, a lot of people say, I've had men say, I'm going to give my wife a vibrator for her birthday. She'll be so happy. Well, I can almost guarantee you she already has one hidden someplace. But if a man really wants to be in a situation where he doesn't have sex with his wife, the best thing to do is buy her a vibrator, because once she gets hooked on a vibrator, she could care less about sex, because the vibrator is going to give her the pleasure that you used to give her, and then some. So, anyway, between Golden Hand Syndrome and Golden Vibrator Syndrome, there are a lot of people that are choosing to be satisfying themselves. And that's not a healthy way to live, in my opinion. But of course, it's just my opinion. And if you are in a situation where you're using the vibrator on a regular basis, then my suggestion is give yourself a break. Start being aware of the sensitivity of your clitoris. Start being aware of, how often you please yourself that way. And start being aware of the fact that, when you used to enjoy being pleased orally by your husband, start noticing that, is it really the same? I've always told people that if a woman is using a vibrator, it doesn't matter how good you are at pleasing someone orally. It's never going to give her the 90 to 110 orgasms a minute if you're pleasing her. And, I think a man can do about half that, but you're never going to be able to match up to a vibrator. So thank you for listening. If there's anything in this video that you've enjoyed or learned from, do me a favor. Share it with someone that you care about. You don't want to miss my next video. I'm going to be talking to the teenagers, letting the teenagers know some of the habits that they have and some of the things they're doing that are definitely going to catch up with them down the road. You have a blessed day, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.